The aircraft cabin was dim, lit only by a few reading lights casting down onto rows of worn seats. Outside the window, the American South was a solid mass of black. No horizon, no starlight. Only darkness stretching beneath the wings. Just a few hours earlier, Lynyrd Skynyrd had still been standing on stage in Greenville, South Carolina, before thousands of fans. The guitars rang out, the crowd sang along to every line, and none of them knew that it would be the band's final performance in that lineup. Now, they were aboard a privately chartered Convair CV-240, flying toward Baton Rouge for the next stop on the tour. For an American rock band in the 1970s, traveling between cities on small aircraft was routine. The schedule was packed, time was tight, everything moved like a machine. This flight, in the eyes of many on board, was simply a transition, nothing more. But something was wrong. It did not arrive with screaming or chaos. It arrived as a vague sense of unease. The sound of the engines changed. The vibration of the aircraft was no longer steady. In the cockpit, the crew began facing a serious situation. The aircraft was running out of fuel. According to later investigative conclusions, both engines lost power one after the other because there was not enough fuel to sustain the flight. In the passenger cabin, the band members and technical crew did not have the full picture. Between them and the cockpit was a closed door, and all they had at that moment was trust that those in control at the front would handle the problem. There was no sign of an explosion, no fire in the air. Only the sensation that the aircraft was descending, not according to plan. As the pilot attempted to find an emergency landing site in the darkness of rural Mississippi, every option became limited. No airport, no guiding lights, only dense forest below. And then, in the final moment, the aircraft struck treetops near Gillsburg and broke apart on impact with the ground. The crash claimed the lives of Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, and others on board. For America, it was not just an aviation accident. It was the moment a Southern rock legend was cut short at its peak, leaving behind a silence that would linger for decades. The news spread the following morning, not loudly at first, but slowly and heavily, in the manner typical of the 1970s. A plane crash in rural Mississippi, a rock band involved. Then the names began to appear in news reports. Lynyrd Skynyrd. When people realized it was not a rumor but the truth, the entire country seemed to break abruptly. Southern radio stations were the first places where the reaction became clear. Many programs halted their regular broadcasts to play Lynyrd Skynyrd songs continuously, interspersed with fragmented announcements, short on detail but heavy with shock. The voices of radio hosts slowed, dropped in tone. No one rushed to analyze. No one was certain what had happened. Only that an icon of Southern rock had been torn from American musical life overnight. When the identities of the victims were confirmed, the shock became more specific and more painful. Ronnie Van Zant, the lead singer and soul of the band, had died at the scene. Steve Gaines, the young guitarist who had joined less than a year earlier, and Cassie Gaines, a backing vocalist, also did not survive. For many fans, this was not simply the loss of a band, but the loss of an entire generation of Southern American music. National media quickly followed, but the tone remained cautious. Reports focused on confirming casualties, the crash site near Gillsburg, and the condition of the survivors. The first images from the scene showed the wreckage scattered among trees, a stark contrast to the bright stage lights Lynyrd Skynyrd had left behind only hours earlier. Within the music industry, reactions were equally shaken. Fellow artists expressed disbelief, many emphasizing that Lynyrd Skynyrd were at their creative and commercial peak. The album Street Survivors had been released less than 3 days before the crash. Its original cover, depicting the band amid flames, was quickly withdrawn for being considered too disturbing in the context of the tragedy. For the American public, this was a direct blow to the fragile sense of safety of the era. The 1970s had already seen many artist-related tragedies, but the Lynyrd Skynyrd crash carried a different tone. Not drugs, not violence, but an ordinary flight. It was precisely this that caused questions to multiply. What had really happened on that plane? And could this tragedy have been avoided? To understand why the crash was so shocking, it is necessary to rewind many years before the aircraft took off into the Mississippi night. Lynyrd Skynyrd did not rise through luck alone. They were formed by individuals who grew up in the American South, where music was deeply tied to identity, regional pride, and the social tensions of the time. From Jacksonville, Florida, the band gradually built its reputation through long performances. Sweat poured onto small stages before wider recognition came. Their music carried a distinctly Southern rock spirit, raw, direct, blending blues, country, and rock. When Sweet Home Alabama began playing on radios across the United States, Lynyrd Skynyrd became more than a popular band. They became a voice for an entire cultural region. Their career advanced rapidly, but not easily. In the mid-1970s, Lynyrd Skynyrd toured constantly, with almost no extended breaks. Tour followed tour, city after city. Success brought pressure to maintain status. In this context, Ronnie Van Zant held a central role, not only as lead singer, but as the figure who shaped the band's spirit and maintained a fragile balance among strong personalities. In 1976, the band experienced a major change when guitarist Steve Gaines joined. Steve brought new energy, superior technical skill, and freshness to the songwriting. His sister, Cassie Gaines, also joined as a backing vocalist. The new lineup was considered the strongest in Lynyrd Skynyrd's history, and many believed the band was entering its most artistically mature phase. The album Street Survivors emerged in that context. Its content reflected experience, fatigue, and determination from a band that had already endured losses, including a serious car accident in 1975, after which Ronnie Van Zant reportedly said he would no longer fly. However, the momentum of touring and work pressure gradually pushed personal warnings aside. Outwardly, the public saw Lynyrd Skynyrd as a powerful rock machine that could not stop. Internally, fatigue accumulated. Concerns about safety, health, and relentless pace began to surface. From that contrast, between bright glory and quiet limits, the road to tragedy formed, step by step, before anyone realized they were moving too close to the edge. If one looked only at the stage lights, it would appear Lynyrd Skynyrd entered 1977 as an unstoppable train. But behind the hits and applause was a very real reality of 1970s rock. Dense touring schedules, constant travel, and a level of risk many artists accepted as normal. The band had already brushed the edge before. In 1975, Ronnie Van Zant was seriously injured in a car accident. The incident left not only physical scars, but also a fear of travel and the fragility of life. There are records that after the accident, Ronnie said he would no longer fly. But a tour is a tour. Once the machine grows large, contracts, schedules, venues, ticket sales locked in, saying no becomes a luxury. In 1977, Street Survivors was released on the 17th of October. For any major band, that moment leaves no room to slow down. A new album means promotion, new tours, new pressure. Just 3 days later, disaster struck. The distance between peak and tragedy was not years, it was days. At this point, a crucial detail emerges when viewed through an investigative lens. The aircraft they chartered, the Convair CV-240, was not a symbol of luxury or safety. It was an old aircraft. After the crash, investigations concluded that the plane went down after both engines lost power due to fuel exhaustion. This means the tragedy did not begin with bad weather or an unexpected explosion. It began with something chillingly basic: fuel. From here, the story opens into the kind of darkness typical of final hours. Not sensational darkness, but systemic darkness. A system in which artists often do not control their own transport. Management handles schedules. Tour crews handle logistics. Flight crews handle technical matters. And those on board, even stars, are still passengers. When everything operates on trust, a single failure can leave no way back. It is also the darkness of the show must go on. Touring is not just art, it is revenue. Canceling shows means lost income, lost credibility, lost opportunity. In that era, many bands accepted constant travel as part of the job. And when risk becomes routine, it disguises itself as habit. What makes the Lynyrd Skynyrd story so haunting is that this was not a tragedy born of rebellion. It was born of normalized pressure, normalized travel, normalized fatigue, normalized just one more leg. On the 20th of October 1977, they did what they had done countless times before: boarded a plane to make the next show. But that night, one more leg became the final one. The final weeks before the disaster did not look like a tragedy approaching. On the contrary, they resembled the most textbook phase of a touring band. Packed schedules, constant movement, a newly released album, and a promotional machine running smoothly. Street Survivors was released on 17 October 1977. For any major band, this was not a moment to slow down. A new album meant being on the road, being visible, maintaining momentum. Lynyrd Skynyrd were at the point where success both opened doors and locked them into responsibility. If you were the leading force of Southern rock, you were not allowed to disappear. In those days, what stands out is not a clear mystical sign, but how risk dissolved into routine. A band accustomed to life on the road treats night flights, city changes, short sleep, and waking up elsewhere as part of life. The most dangerous thing is not fear. It is normalization. There was also an uncomfortable paradox. Lynyrd Skynyrd had survived a serious car accident in 1975 that left Ronnie Van Zant badly injured. That incident created a fear of travel, and records indicate he once said he would not fly again. But the entertainment industry does not operate on personal fear. It operates on schedules, contracts, venues, and numbers already sold. Once the itinerary is fixed, not flying can become an idea without standing. On the night of the 20th of October, 1977, Lynyrd Skynyrd performed in Greenville, South Carolina. For the audience, it was like any other show. Music, lights, cheers. For the band, it was a tour stop, another tick on the list. That ordinariness is what makes the story unsettling. No one stepped onto the stage thinking it was the last time. After the show, they left to make it to Baton Rouge for the next date. A night flight, in theory, was simply a practical solution to save time and keep the tour intact. There was no farewell ritual, no final goodbye, no sense of this is the last time. Just a familiar decision: get on the plane and continue. From that moment, everything shifted from normal to irreversible. What is known for certain is that the Convair CV-240 later suffered a critical failure as both engines lost power due to fuel exhaustion, forcing the pilot to attempt an emergency landing in the Mississippi night. At that point, all choices collapsed into one question: could the plane be put down in time? The final 24 hours of Lynyrd Skynyrd began like dozens of other days on the 1977 tour. The morning passed in the familiar atmosphere of people who had lived on the road for too long. Scattered rest, equipment movement, preparation for the evening show. There is no information indicating the band knew of a specific threat. No official warnings, no unusual decisions were recorded. On the evening of the 20th of October 1977, Lynyrd Skynyrd took the stage in Greenville, South Carolina. The performance was completed in full. Ronnie Van Zant stood at the center. Steve Gaines played guitar with the confidence of someone at his peak. Cassie Gaines provided backing vocals. For the audience, it was simply a powerful concert. After leaving the stage, the band and crew moved quickly to the airport to catch the night flight to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the next stop on the tour. They boarded a privately chartered Convair CV-240, a twin-engine propeller aircraft that had been in service for many years. On board were band members, management, flight crew, and related personnel. The early part of the flight showed no publicly recorded abnormalities, but as the aircraft crossed Mississippi airspace, the situation deteriorated. According to later investigation, the CV-240 ran out of fuel, causing both engines to lose power sequentially. This is a key detail, as it eliminates many early sensational theories. Not bad weather, not an in-air explosion, not a collision. With insufficient engine power, the aircraft was forced to descend. The pilot attempted to find an emergency landing site, but in the darkness of rural Mississippi, options were almost non-existent. No airport, no runway, no lights. Only dense forest below. The final moments were not a vertical drop, but a desperate attempt to control what could no longer be controlled. The aircraft struck treetops first, then broke apart on impact with the ground near Gillsburg, Mississippi. The impact was strong enough to destroy the aircraft's structure, but not an instantaneous explosion, explaining why some survived and others did not. Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, and Cassie Gaines were killed at the scene, along with several others. Some band members and crew survived but were seriously injured, carrying physical and psychological trauma for the rest of their lives. Within minutes, everything Lynyrd Skynyrd had built over more than a decade was split into two halves, before that flight and after it. There was no chance to correct course, no next leg. Only wreckage scattered among trees, and a question America would revisit for years. Could this tragedy have been prevented? As the crash site was accessed and survivors taken for treatment, the Lynyrd Skynyrd story entered a new phase, one where music stepped aside for investigation, reports, and cold questions. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board conducted an investigation. The official conclusion identified the direct cause: fuel exhaustion, leading to sequential engine failure during flight. There was no evidence of bad weather, mid-air collision, or explosion before impact. Technically, it was a simple conclusion, but it opened far more complex debates about responsibility. The central question emerged quickly. How could a flight carrying well-known artists traveling across multiple states run out of fuel? Reports indicated the aircraft had not been fueled sufficiently for the full journey, and fuel monitoring, distance calculation. For surviving band members, returning to music became not just a career question, but a moral and emotional one. Could Lynyrd Skynyrd exist without those who defined its soul? After the disaster, Lynyrd Skynyrd lost more than members. A tour schedule is just a schedule, until it normalizes risk. And a decision to push one more leg is just a decision, until it becomes the line between life and death. For fans, the crash froze Lynyrd Skynyrd in an image both glorious and painful. Artists at their peak, pulled from the stage before the next chapter. For America, it was one of the moments when popular music collided directly with human fragility, leaving a long silence, forcing reflection on the cost of speed, profit, and ignoring limits. And perhaps the most haunting element is the sense of almost. Almost arrived, almost landed, almost began a new chapter. But history does not operate on almost. It operates on outcomes. Lynyrd Skynyrd left in a Mississippi night, but their music did not leave with it. It remains, an enduring echo of the American South, brilliant, and a reminder that even the greatest legends can be ended by things that seem simple.